Hello, I am Cody Ellingham and this is the Transformation of Value podcast. Today I talk with the Kiwi Bitcoin Builders. This New Zealand-based group connects people working on various Bitcoin projects, from tools for merchant acceptance of Bitcoin through to mining businesses, Bitcoin meetups, education, and even developing on the Lightning Network. Today we have a general catch-up on various projects we are working on, as well as hear from two members of the group, Rob Clarkson and Simon Collins, who discussed their chance to be speakers at the recent Bitcoin Alive event in Sydney. Now, if you are a Bitcoin builder working on something, whether it is tech-based or not, please get in touch. Send an email to hello@thetransformationofvalue.com and I will get back to you. I do hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would like to support the show, please consider streaming some Satoshis via your favourite podcasting 2.0 platform, such as Fountain or Breeze. Otherwise, on to the show. No, we're all good. All right, so we'll kick it off there, I think. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for making the time on a Sunday evening to catch up. So I thought it would be good to maybe recap a few things that have happened lately. We've got a bit of a community building going on. A lot of things are happening. And most recently, the Bitcoin Alive, which seems like it really was a bit of a big deal. So I'm keen to hear from our two speakers from the Kiwi contingent who went over, Rob and Simon. Get your guys' thoughts on how that went, maybe what we can learn as a bit of a starting point. How does that sound?
Rob, do you want to?
I was going to say after you, Simon. I think the guy who got two spontaneous rounds of applause should probably go first.
Look, it was pretty awesome, wasn't it, Rob? I mean, and Andrew, of course, because look, we had it was an awesome day. It was really well organized, and I think one of the things that I reflected on a lot was the kind of differences and similarities between the Australia and the New Zealand Bitcoin communities. I think we over here are probably a smaller and tighter kind of contingent, whereas they could muster 300 plus people who are all, interested enough to spend a few $100 on tickets. I think that might be a pretty hard ask over here, where probably the people in this chat represent a really significant proportion of the people who are, as the name of the group is, building in and on Bitcoin in New Zealand. But over there, they have meetups that are relatively larger. I went to the Bitcoin Sydney meetup on the Thursday beforehand, and there were probably over 100 people there, which I know was a large turnout for one of those events because of its proximity to Bitcoin Alive, but also it is relatively well attended. And so from my perspective, the opportunity is to kind of build relationships between both Australia and New Zealand so that we're not duplicating effort and double spending resources. We all hate double spending in Bitcoin, right? But reflections on the day. I mean, it was huge. Really, really good caliber of speakers, if I may say so. Like, every panel had some value in it. I spent most of the day a little bit too nervous to kind of tune in to every single word that was said, especially because mine was one of the last few panels. I just spent my entire day furiously revising my speaking notes and finding it difficult to pay attention. But look, the outcomes are really good. And I think what has been really positive is the feedback, especially like that I certainly have gotten around the kind of interest and impact that being on stage kind of provides you as a speaker. And I would sort of recommend that anybody who's kind of keen to build some profile, just start approaching those kinds of events and stuff, just because they're often far more receptive than you expect them to be, and it pays massive dividends even already. So sorry, a bit of a ramble, but good experience, and I look forward to hopefully being asked back one day.
Rob?
What Simon said. It was great. It was really well organized. It was like the organizers had it was like their, fifth or 10th one, everything ran like clockwork. Such a wide variety of talkers. Everything from the philosophical to the quite technical. It was great. I think like all the talks were really well attended, and the one Simon was in was packed. I was in the back room, so it was like a little bit of a kind of a smaller stage in a smaller room, and I think the smallest crowd I think that I'd seen at the conference, but I actually got the most questions out of anybody I'd seen at the conference. So I don't know. Maybe the reduction in crowd size meant that people felt freer to speak up and ask a question. But yeah, it was good. It was great to have the opportunity to go and to talk there. So that was good as well. And it was cool. We met Kiwis that we hadn't met before in the groups. So it was good. It was good from that respect as well. So it was great. My favorite thing is just kind of chatting to random plebs in the pub at the end. It's always my favorite part of the conferences because you just have mad conversations, and you don't, you start in at the deep end, obviously, like every kind of Bitcoin meetup. So it's good. Yeah, it was really good.
Rob, have you spoken before at an event like that?
No, never. Yeah.
HG, I'd be keen to hear your perspectives because you were in the audience there, weren't you?
Yeah, I was in the audience, and I helped Rob do his little presentation, but it was just a lot of fun. It was really laid back, which I thought was cool. If you go to like a Miami or an LA conference, I think you might get a fair bit of that rah-rah, which is fun too, but it was really laid back. But I guess the thing that hit me is just that they are doing a lot of stuff in Australia and we are not, just Amber, the app was there, but just people all over. It's like, there's a surgeon from the Royal Adelaide Hospital who's speaking about Bitcoin and health, just people giving advice on tax, people giving advice on estate planning, various, you've got the Perth Heat, the pro baseball team, you've got the Bush Bashers, you've got that conference, there's a lot of stuff going on there, and we don't really have an equivalent except for the mighty BitKiwi. But it was super fun, and we were among friends. I definitely felt that. And whenever we said to a few of them, about just what we, some of the events that we run here and things we've got, ideas for the future. And they were like, oh, we'll come over. And I believe they would. The Aussies love New Zealand. So any events we would run, big or small, I think they would come.
We do. We definitely risk an invasion of the South Island by Australians based on my conversations. They want a slice of Wanaka, from what I can gather.
Yeah, well, I reckon Bitcoin Bush Bash South Island style would be a hit.
I'm curious, what's the infrastructure like in Australia for Bitcoin? Is there like off-ramps for merchants or anything like that, the stuff that we're exploring here? Like, are they a bit further along in terms of merchant adoption as well? Or? Yeah,
I don't really know. On-ramps, I think maybe a few more, but I didn't dive into any of the, the merchant off-ramp kind of, like the coin corner type thing places.
I orange pilled an Uber driver, so there's at least one Uber driver that's going to take Bitcoin pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I normally look on the BTC map, but I think I was just so busy, I just didn't get a chance to check it out. We did go for a big meal in a Brazilian steakhouse, but I don't think they were taking Bitcoin. Andrew, did they take Bitcoin in that steakhouse? I don't think they did. No. But me and Andrew, hang on. So Andrew took Bitcoin off me for the steak, so that worked out.
Actually, Rob, what were you presenting there? Actually,
I was talking about the Bolt card, which is the tap and go for the Lightning Network. I think Brandon demonstrated it at BitKiwi last time. If that's right, Brandon.
I showed it to a few people. Yeah, we had the pasta bar sitting there right next to the ATM, and showed a few people who were interested, but it wasn't a big show.
Well, that's sort of now that Wallet of Satoshi is coming out with a bit of POS support. It looks quite exciting as well, being able to run the bulk cards over that.
But our ones, Rob.
Oh,
About to give it a crack. Be interesting.
Yeah. Just sorry, with the Bitcoin Alive stuff, just come back to Australia though. It seems like there's a lot of learnings. There's a lot of stuff happening over there, sort of an order of magnitude higher than where we're at in New Zealand. In terms of learning from that though, and connecting with that, like what are the avenues for us to learn from what's happening over there? Yeah. What are the ways for us to build that bridge?
So I think something really important to say here is that I don't think that the quality of what's happening in Australia is any better than what's happening here. And quite specifically, I think there's a reason that both I and Rob were on stage at that event, is that because we're doing stuff in New Zealand that is just as high a standard as anything that's happening in Australia. And I know I put several organizers of meetups onto the BitKiwi guys this week, because I think that actually BitKiwi is better in terms of organization and delivery, in terms of getting about a tech sats is a massive kind of improvement over just renting or just hiring out a lounge bar at a pub in Surrey Hills. So I think really important just to kind of preface or to kind of reference that like what Rod's doing with Bulk Card is just as good as anything that's going on, if not better than anything that I saw going on in payments in Australia. What I had to say, if I may say so, was at least as interesting as anybody else on the panel that I was on. And so I think it's really important that we don't kind of position ourselves as the poor stepchild of Australia and Bitcoin, because we absolutely are not. We are just smaller. And we are just smaller because we are smaller. Like any meetup that you might go to, huge number of the people that are at these things are just buyers and hodlers. They're not developers, builders in any regard. So I think, that would be my key takeaway here, is that we don't need to go begging to Australia to please be included in your amazing Bitcoin works. We have the opportunity to work alongside Australia to build a kind of citadel South Pacific in Bitcoin. And we have as much to add as any single individual company group in Australia alongside them. So from my perspective, and onto your question, Cody, is that what do we do from here? I think we need to build strong community relationships. I think we need to know what's going on, who's doing it, and what do they want from collaboration, from funding and work, and what are the gaps that both sides see as needing filled, and what resource can each side of the ditch offer to do so. And so that is very much what I kind of spent, especially the last half of that trip doing, is getting people's details, connecting with them on Telegram, connecting other people to them on Telegram, because I think that's how we start, right? So actually, Cody, happy to connect you with some podcasters over there as well, because whether you want to do collaborative convos or not, I've done two Australian podcasts already, and they're as good, no better or worse than any particular New Zealand podcasts that I've been on. So that's my perspective on that, is that we're just as good, and we just need to forge links.
Yeah, thanks for making those connections with us as well, Simon. Appreciate that. And we're definitely going to chat with them a bit and see if we can pick their brains, maybe offer them some advice as well, by the sounds of it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like, just sharing notes. I mean, you don't have to give them your IP, right? But I think there's an amazing, like a BitKiwi Sydney event would be awesome, right? You guys go over, set up the kind of stuff that you guys do at one of their events. That'd be over the moon.
Yeah. And you've got the branding, with the BitKiwi, you've got the branding so that you could actually deploy that. It doesn't have to be in New Zealand. You've got
100%.
all of the visuals, all of the style, all of the vibe to actually deploy that anywhere. And I think
straight to Bondi. One thing that was a bit of a little discovery for us was this guy Ferris, his name is, who runs the Bitcoin Basics. Was that the name of it, Rob? He's an American guy originally, but he lives in Nelson. He got a partner in Melbourne, a business partner, and they're on this podcast called Bitcoin Basics, and they've done like 300 episodes, and they've interviewed some quite big names. And someone happened to walk past me and go, "Oh, that guy's from New Zealand," and we ended up kind of going and having dinner, and he come and had dinner with us. And so I've connected with him on Twitter, but I think definitely get him into the community because he's definitely out there doing it.
Totally. And I'm due to do an app with him as well.
I ended up talking to the organizer of the Brisbane Bitcoin meetup, and I was telling him about Kiwi Lamb's token system for the beers. And I think that's got, because we were talking about this at the last Bit Kiwi there, about that being quite handy for when you haven't quite orange pilled the bar yet, having something that you can use to be able to use Lightning in the bar, and so people can see it working and then still being able to buy beer, if albeit indirectly. Yeah, so I think there's I definitely think we're ahead in some ways. Yeah.
Just on that note as well, everyone, I don't know who's had a chance to listen to the latest episode talking with the UK Bitcoin meetup guys, Bridge to Bitcoin and Suffolk Bitcoin, that I did the other day, but I had a really great chat with them and understanding how they're organising in the UK, because they've got a really good system, and I was quite blown away by their merchant adoption approach, which looks at basically positioning themselves as a marketing company to create interest in Bitcoin, and going to these seminars and these kind of events where people talk about that sort of stuff. But I feel like there's a lot of that, the kind of the organizational approach to how they've managed to do that, and they've got Telegram groups for each region in the UK, and they then have like another group for just the organizers of those groups, and there was just sort of some basic comms stuff there which I thought was quite illuminating, and so they've been able to get really quite a bit of penetration for merchant adoption in the country. And coming back to what Kiwi Lamb's been working on as well, I still feel that there's a real opportunity to open source that approach, maybe not necessarily the underlying tech, but even just how you can make any venue, accept Bitcoin for an event by having this kind of middleware interface, so they don't actually have to touch the Bitcoin straight away. I think that's really powerful, and that could get some real global traction if you were to sort of package it up as a thing. So certainly there's a lot of potential there.
Have you done a video demo of that, Matt? Because at the Sydney thing, the bar, the hamburger place didn't accept Bitcoin. If you had that there, man, you would have had 300 people looking at it, and especially with the, especially with the little ching noises, mate.
Yeah,
mate, you'd be doing global franchises by now.
Bit Kiwi did do a recording at one point. One in I don't know if it was Bit Kiwi 1 or 2, but a recording of me paying for a drink for them in Wellington. So there are some recordings around, but we can obviously do something a little bit more contrived or a bit more marketed. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, there's a few clips. I think there was probably 3 or 4 clips floating around on Twitter from various Bit Kiwis of a transaction going through. The one Kiwi Lamb's referring to was, I think, at Bit Kiwi 1, where he was paid for a beer for us from Christchurch, and so we filmed it sort of simultaneously and cut it together, and that was quite cool. And someone else at Bit Kiwi 1 shouted someone a beer from Vietnam as well.
Yeah.
So it's quite cool when you get it out onto social media a little bit. But yeah, it has been a cool little system actually, because we just built it to create a way of doing it. We thought we'd eventually orange pill the bar and would only do this for 1 or 2 sort of meetups, but that worked out really good, and people seem to enjoy the novelty, so we just kept it going.
Yeah, that is the ultimate goal, though, obviously, for the bar to be able to accept our Lightning payments. That would be awesome.
Ideal.
but this is an intern step. But as you say, anyone in the world can pay for those beers, right? So, if you want to involve the Aussie guys, if you want to involve the UK crew, that could be an opportunity there. to get them involved in our meetups in some way. Maybe you can have virtual meetups.
What's your appetite for that piece of like tech? So the actual what you've built, is that something you're interested in open sourcing? Do you want to, like how do you want to approach that side of it? Because there's the concept of how you can do it, and then there's what you've actually built to do it, and I think they're two different things. And I know just as a methodology, like it's a really good idea, but are you happy with where the tech stack's at the moment? Does it need more work, or what's your vision for that, Matt?
Yeah, I think at the moment the problem is that it's a little bit probably more custodial than what we want. That open sourcing that might, that's not the issue. It's sort of like who holds the funds at the end of the day. I see something like a technology like possibly Fedimint or something like that might resolve that, because that's more spreading the ownership over a community of people or a federation of people instead of just one person or trusting one business or something like that. Definitely an opportunity there for sure that you could look into. But I think that, as I said, the ultimate goal, right, is just accept it yourself. Then we don't have to have this. But if meetups and stuff want to use it, they definitely could.
Yeah, we started off, we're not having custody at all. We were using the LN Pay service. Slowly over the last couple of BitKiwis, we've been changing it under the hood and bringing it into our custody. So Matt's basically hosting that for us right now, but we're slowly putting together the node behind me in the wardrobe. We've built a bespoke PC in there, and we've been getting that sorted. We've got it in a rack in the cupboard. Just been adding some bits and pieces to it and going through our own journey of learning about Lightning a bit, so we can connect in some channels and then sort of cautiously, conservatively take custody over time without risk of the system falling over. So eventually we'll have it in our own custody as well. But part of the cool thing in that journey is starting to open up our eyes a bit around a little bit of a circular economy, because I'm aware that Brandon and others are running nodes in a pretty stable manner by the sounds of it. So once we're connected properly, well, we've got channels open, but once we're getting transactions going through connected to KiwiLamb's node, and then we connect with others, I feel like this group and others around New Zealand, if we all connect in this way and get more experience and better at the Lightning Network, we're basically creating a circular economy all on its own, which is pretty cool. So we can see some expansion with it. Like we started off just paying for these drinks, now we're sourcing Bitcoin Magazine and selling that at the meetups as well. And so we were thinking of transferring that into the system, and then basically you can do anything with it. And if we're all connected, people can open up their own opportunities around the country, hosting their own wallets and collecting sats for various things. And we might have a large number of sats actually routing through all of our nodes, which would be a pretty cool sort of story, sort of a semi-circular economy going in New Zealand, which would be pretty cool.
Thank you for that, Paul. I agree. I'm wondering, just on a technical level, I was posting some questions the other day in the Telegram group around Lightning. It's still something I'm learning about at the moment. But with opening nodes and that circular economy you talk about, is there a way for us to maybe discuss that a little bit more? Because I feel, there is a lot of people running their own nodes, their own services, and one of the big things is you can connect to someone else's nodes, right, and build those channels and that sort of thing. So I'm not too clued up on how the technicals of that might work, but is that a possibility, like having I guess a platform for talking about that, whether it's a group chat or something?
Sure. The big upside of doing that would be, if we're running, events, businesses, actually building on the Lightning Network, having our nodes connected to each other, and people actually having self-custody on the Lightning Network, we make an efficient system that actually runs here, and we're not all running through, Wada Satoshi and the other large nodes in the network. I said earlier in that chat, like, the Lightning Network isn't just one network. It's a collection of it's one big network in some ways, but in other ways it's many small networks. I have a network of large nodes that I connect to. I have a network of plebs that I connect to, and I have a network of New Zealand nodes that I'm aware of that I connect to. And, the more traffic that my node sees through those New Zealand nodes, the better, as far as I'm concerned, because those are the ones that I'm going to keep no matter what, even if they're not profitable. So, it'd be nice to make them profitable. So let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just helps increase the liquidity, within our country as well, right? And routing payments as well. So that's helps having connections to other nodes. And just on that, I was just looking at my node today, and I thought, oh, when did I start doing my first payments through here? It was sort of February 2019. And the reason why I looked at that is because I actually pushed through 2 payments in Lightning that were quite significant. One was 1,500 New Zealand dollars, and the other was 2,000, and they just worked.
Nice.
And like that just wouldn't have happened, even probably a couple of years ago. I do remember when first hosting a node, you sort of started to have trouble at routing 100,000 sats or something like that. So yeah, definitely things have changed for sure. There's a lot more liquidity out there.
I've had very much the same experience when I started, playing around with my first node. I went relatively deep and tried really hard to make the thing work. And so I put, a reasonable amount of Bitcoin on there in terms of liquidity and tried to find some good nodes to work with. And I struggled a little bit, you have kept trying to tinker and update and do things differently because it wasn't, it mostly worked, but those, for a system like this, as we know, like FPOS works most of the time, but we all still hate it because every once in a while we go to the place and it's, it's down, right? We need a network that is up all the time and is always working. And, for the last, and I said this in one of our Telegram channels the other day, for the last 6 months, I can't remember a time where I got frustrated, trying to make something happen. Transaction with my node, it's been getting a lot better. It's time to build on it, I think.
And just can I ask that, do you see that those improvements are because of the quality of your infrastructure changing, the development and the software that is available to implement on those nodes, or is it your own liquidity on the node that's improved?
For myself, I'll say that my liquidity has improved over time just because naturally, as I've been trying to build things up and do different things, I have like 4 or 5 nodes now. So I've got liquidity going to those. And so I've definitely built up liquidity over time. But I think the 2 primary reasons are that it's been quite a few improvements just on the implementation side of things. LND itself or C Lightning, Core Lightning, what do they call themselves these days? With the routing, algorithms they're using and just the ways that it's actually operating and choosing routes and things like that. We're just getting fewer failed payments. And then myself personally, it's just using tools that make managing liquidity a lot easier has also been a big game changer for me. It's made it so that I don't have to spend so much manual time thinking about, I'm going to be using Wallet Satoshi today or paying people that have Wallet Satoshi today. I need to make sure I have liquidity there. Like I don't actually have to think about that much anymore because I've set up some automation around that. And those sorts of tools getting a lot better from say 2 years ago is one of the things that's made, my node specifically work more reliably.
Yeah, I kind of go the opposite way of that. In the early days, I sort of managed my channels quite a lot and monitored them and, made sure they were balanced and, spent a lot of time just sort of involved in that area. But, I would say as of a couple of years ago, I sort of just let it go. And I've just let the channels do what they do, and they route payments back and forward. And I really haven't actually, spent a lot of time in managing that, and it's worked. So, but as you're saying, that's just also the benefits of what Brendan just said. increased liquidity, channels, more nodes coming online. I haven't really changed my, amount of liquidity available at all. But what I have found is that I think over time, channel number has probably reduced, but capacity has increased. So you're generally getting larger channels, smaller amounts of channels would be a general trend that I've seen. That's for sure.
No, that sounds like centralization.
Oh yeah, it could be.
Oh.
Yeah, there's always the risk of that for sure. Yeah.
Brandon, what was that automatic tool that you've been using to do the balancing?
I've used a couple of them. I ran the Sea Lightning node for a while. The one there, I can't remember what it's called exactly. It was kind of Boss in the name, CL Boss. I used that for a little while, but today my main node has LND on it. And so the tool that I use there is called LNDG. And that's essentially just a big dashboard that shows me everything about the node. And I rarely look at it, maybe once a week or something like that, but it does two things for me. So one is it changes fees. So if there's a lot of attempted payments going in one direction, where there's no liquidity, it'll see that that's happening and it'll increase the fees. And the reason it increases the fees is that makes it profitable for that same system, LNDG, to rebalance. So it'll send liquidity to the other side of that channel, assuming that those payments will still be attempted. And it generally works pretty well. So I guess, Matt, I don't spend any time managing liquidity either. I guess the reason that I don't is because it's done for me. So it's a big change from, if you're running a hobby node, and you actually want it to work all the time. It's a big change to sort of take a step back and sort of let it run. One way to do that is, just let it run. I'm not sure that I've done enough, analysis of the value of this automation to tell you whether it's, working or not. All I can tell you is the results, and maybe we're finding the same results for, the same reasons. Just the Lightning Network's getting better and it's working better. But I guess I can only speak to what I've done.
Yeah, as you said before, right? There's been some tech underneath that's changed significantly. Multi-path routing. There's some really smart guys working on these routing algorithms that are working out pretty good. Yeah.
If I may, just one thing, again, from my perspective, I feel like Lightning, I'm still, learning a lot here. And I feel like there's definitely more just conversations and learnings that, if that's something we can discuss, whether through the Telegram group or BitKiwi, because I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on the Bitcoin side. But when it comes to Lightning, there's still a lot of fundamental mental models that I'm not sure, just how I should be thinking about it. Without getting too deep into the tech, I'm always very reluctant, until I know that it's, I'm going to be able to manage it and it's not going to fall over. So I feel like there's definitely a space there to share some of that, and especially if some of these solutions become available that are a little bit easier for people who are not as super technical about it, as maybe it was a few years ago. Things like Umbrel, I believe, is quite easy to get up and running. So just for me, I feel like there's definitely a little bit more to learn, but I'm keen to learn from everyone here.
Yeah, I think that'd be great that we spend a little bit more time on this. I will say, we've been talking about running, nodes of reasonable size for, I guess for my purpose, it's been mostly a learning exercise, trying to play with the tools and make them work. And that's required me to sort of set things up a certain way, I think. But, I think a lot of what's missing around getting Lightning, and specifically self-custody Lightning, in people's hands is that it's not enough out there that's sort of getting people what they really need out of it, if that makes sense. So what I mean is, I've got a node here that's got a pretty significant amount of capacity, that it has 25 channels, and it's got some automation in the background and everything else, and like for most people who are going to be using the Lightning Network, that's completely unnecessary. What you really need is you need a I was going to say a Lightning node. We'll just say a Lightning node, but that node can be, at your house. It can be an app on your phone, with a couple of channels to some, reasonable liquidity nodes that you can get your payments, sent to the place they need to be sent, right? And that's really all most people need is their wallet, their Lightning implementation, and a few channels that are going to get their payments there. And there's not, obviously there's a lot of focus or a lot of adoption of the custodial apps, because that's, taking that ease of use and ratcheting it all the way up. But I think the missing piece in self-custody is just, how you get what you need if you're just the guy's going to put a few $100 in your wallet and go spend it over the course of a week, right? That self-custody infrastructure is not quite there.
Yeah, I think that's what we need to educate people on, though, right? Is that this is not a savings system. Let's not store large quantities of value in a custodial Lightning wallet. I think the education around that is the more important thing. Let's use it for what it is as a payment system. Let's put a little bit of money in your wallet to use, daily, weekly, whatever. But it's not there to, hodl your Bitcoin, so to speak. So that is a key thing. So I don't have an issue with custodial Lightning, as long as people are using it in a responsible manner. I guess that's what it comes down to. If you've got dozens of Bitcoins in a Lightning wallet and it's custodial, I think that's just probably irresponsible, but that's an education thing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any issues with custodial Lightning either. I mean, I use it, I've got a handful of wallets and, probably a couple of them custodial that actually have funds in them. But I guess my main thinking is just that I think in the long run, there's a line you can draw right now, for what's appropriate for on-chain Bitcoin and what's appropriate for Lightning. And as adoption grows, we all know that the base layer can't scale to 8 billion people. And as adoption grows in Bitcoin, that line for what's appropriate for the base layer is going to be shifted upwards over time. And it will have to be, because the value will just increase exponentially, if adoption actually happens. And so, people are going to be pushed onto those other layers. And eventually we're going to have to, if we want, some reasonable portion of those 8 billion people to have, some self-sovereignty, we're going to have to find a way to start, ratcheting up the tools that allow them to do that on that second layer, because most people are going to spend most of their time there. I guess so I think in today's world, I completely agree. Like, custodial options are, great, and they're the best things we have at the moment. But we got to start thinking forward about, where these things go. Yeah,
absolutely. Just on that note, talking about payments, I'd be keen to just move the conversation towards just sort of where everyone thinks, or where things are at with acceptance of Bitcoin, and if anyone's had any conversations since or recent conversations with any merchants or businesses around accepting Bitcoin. I know I've certainly had one, but yeah, just keen to see if anyone's had that experience talking to retailers or shops about Bitcoin.
Yes, Beekeeper in Queenstown I'm talking to at the moment sounds like he's pretty keen to accept Bitcoin for honey. Honey, of course, I guess, is found everywhere in New Zealand. So I guess he's looking for a point of difference. So that's pretty good. So might not be economical after he shipped it, but the fact that he's accepting Bitcoin for it, it could be a point of difference. So yeah, helping him out with that. So I'm setting up sort of low cost setup. So it's Shopify. And then for the Lightning payments, OpenNode, which is a custodial payment solution, and they seem to integrate nicely together. So hopefully it should be a sort of a code-free setup, and then then he should be able to just pay the bill, and it should keep working. So I'm kind of
I was going to ask is so did you say it's called OpenNode?
OpenNode.com.
And is that a Shopify plugin from the plugin store or for the app store in Shopify, or is it a separate entity?
Yeah.
Like you have to, so you say it's no code, but is it a one-click install through Shopify, or?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Awesome.
Yeah, so you can't seem to find it in the Shopify add-ons list. They had Crypto.com, which wasn't going to do. They had BitPay, which wasn't going to do either. And then, so I actually had to go to OpenNode separately. And then OpenNode have a link from their side. You have to KYC yourself onto OpenNode, and then they have a link that connects you to Shopify. So you make sure you're signed into Shopify on the same browser, and then the connection goes ahead. At the point at which I got to the point of the connection, unfortunately, the beekeeper hadn't KYC'd himself with OpenNode yet, so I wasn't actually able to do that connection, but it would be a one-click solution, is my understanding, once the account was properly set up.
Excellent.
Awesome.
So just on that note as well, experience I had recently, went to a Indian restaurant and was talking to them about Bitcoin. They're a new place in Wellington, and you don't see too many new places open up. And so I had a chat with them, and they were really struggling to get people through the door. Very good prices, really good food. Some of the best I've had, in fact. And I was just saying, hey, Bitcoin, is this, you guys are interested? And this came off the tail of talking to the Bridge to Bitcoin guys in the UK. And I saw an opportunity here where it is a marketing service, really, because I'm happy to put in a little bit of time to get Bitcoiners to this place, because there's nowhere else in Wellington where I can spend my sats for lunch. And I realized, I'd be happy to take a few photos for them and to actually do a bit of a package. And I feel like that's what the Bridge to Bitcoin guys have successfully deployed. And so similar here, whether it's a beekeeper or a cafe or whatever, it's almost like a small package that gets them on the map, and then they become a destination. And especially for new businesses who have just maybe coming out of the whole melee that we've been in for the last few years, as new businesses open and they're looking for a way to get the word out, I feel like this is a way to target the niche of Bitcoiners at the moment. And having a pipeline like that, I think could be really effective.
Yeah, I think definitely, Cody, there's potential for introducing businesses and then them talking to their friends. Or, I went in to have dinner during the week at Climber. I hadn't been for a while, and Sam was just so happy to see me. I went in by myself and just sat down, and he's already introduced. I had a conversation yesterday with a guy that runs a coffee cart. It was this guy's not. He's interested to take Bitcoin, but he still needs to understand why it's different to some crypto app he's got on his phone. But he said he would take it, so I'm going to go see him. But Sam told me, he said, there's the veggie shop over the road and a guy that cuts hair around the corner that I mentioned, and they're interested in learning more. So, it's just like little step by step. Sam's our he's like the first merchant we onboarded in Christchurch, and he talks to people and just kind of goes from there.
I'm really keen if I know a few of you guys have been working on sort of various things to help merchants sort of get onboarded. It's not something we've been focusing on. We're just sort of focusing on other things. But naturally, because we're sort of loud in the Bitcoin community a little bit, we get, there's always somebody mentions somebody, a store here, a store there. We're always getting or hearing of opportunities, but we don't necessarily have the knowledge to confidently try and advise others at the moment. Mainly, you can easily just show them how to download Wallet Satoshi and take Bitcoin like that straight off the bat. But obviously the first concern is they need to be able to record properly for tax purposes and things like that. And, you're going to get a lot of merchants who are a little bit wary and won't be keen to just download Wallet Satoshi and go, because there's an element of risk there for them to just start doing that. So I guess what I'm saying is, if I'm really keen to stay connected with you guys when you work on stuff, because if you start getting really good, nice, easy setups, even some resource material, I'd love to just, we all sort of need to stand on the shoulders of each other a little bit on what we're working on. So I'd be keen as to just stay connected and hear about what anybody puts together, and basically cherry pick a little bit so that when we get those noises, we can either put them onto people or we can provide them with stuff that we've gained from people like yourselves. So keen to be involved in all those conversations and keep that going, because you hear of it all the time. Once people hear you're into Bitcoin, you'll just get whispers of these things. There's a guy at my work who says to me every other week that he knows this cafe owner who really wants to accept it, and he keeps asking me, but what can he do for the tax and blah blah blah. And I sort of haven't given him too much of the time of day. But as soon as there's something I know out there I can see working and is going well, I can start passing that stuff on. Maybe even make it available at the BitKiwi meetups for any merchants who come along. Might be a good avenue to try and get them together with Bitcoiners and learn and find out the best ways that they can do this. So it's awesome hearing some of the stuff you guys are doing. So yeah, keep it up.
Thank you. If I may just share a little bit on that. So Robin and Brandon and a few of us have been, we've got an Accept Bitcoin group that we chat on, and that's acceptbitcoin.nz is the current site, but we are working on a redesign of that. And I think situating it's something that I really want to do properly. So we've been working on it sort of step by step. So at this stage, we've got, I think, some really solid content to basically rebuild that website with. And now I'm looking at the design side. I think the communication language is really important. A lot of the Bitcoin material out there has kind of got that open source GitHub kind of feel, which I don't think is always appropriate for a cafe owner or just a normal person to engage with, to kind of feel that they can, take this and run with it. So at a high level, sort of my vision for basically this year is to get that Accept Bitcoin website updated with a new design and new content that's basically going to give everything, all the questions you just asked, Paul, give answers to all of that, as well as have some case studies. So I've done one photo shoot with someone who accepts Bitcoin, and I'm hoping to get a few more. So we've got some really just nice visuals, and just the whole thing is, just polished and, professional. And then that link would be what you send out to someone, and it's enough for them to basically self-educate. And if they want help, they can get in touch, and then that's where you organise a consultation to run them through their options, and it's kind of like a free service. And there's a marketing component to it as well. We'll add them to the map, BTC map, send it out to BitKiwis, tweet it out, and kind of share it amongst the group. So that's a bit of the high-level overview of the vision. But I think the key point for me is that I guess from the design language perspective is that we do a really good job and we don't rush it, which is why I want this material available now, but I'm also wanting to really do it properly. So that's kind of where we're at. Rob, Brandon, I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
No, I'm super excited about the work we're doing around that. You in particular these days, I suppose. But the main idea there is Cody said, if we've got somebody who's interested in accepting Bitcoin, that we can actually hold their hands a little bit, give them enough information that can be dangerous, get started on their own. But the hope is that we'll be able to get enough of us involved in that initiative that as people reach out, hopefully we can send people out to go see them, and not only send people out to go see them to pay, but send people out to go see them and just say like, how can we help you do this, and actually support them to the journey. I think one of the things I've learned, in all the work that I've done, as a product leader, is just like the most important thing is, that people see that they can be successful. So when they arrive on this site, like how do we tell the story that, allows them to see that they're going to be successful doing this? Like, I can actually do this, to give them confidence. And the second thing is you actually need to make them successful. Actually get them there to the point where they're accepting Bitcoin, and then get people to show up and pay them. And so like filling out that whole journey where, we can shorten the time it takes for them to like get curious, make that decision, set it up, and get sats on the back end. The faster we can do that for people, the more likely it is that we'll start seeing traction over this. So I'm pretty keen on this initiative. We're probably going to need help with it over the long run.
Yeah. Sorry, just and adding to that, I think what the big discovery that we all kind of came up with together, actually at Christchurch, we were talking about this, but basically having that touch point within a short period of time. And so someone comes onto the website, they register, they basically say, hey, I've signed up, I've downloaded Wallet of Satoshi or whatever, I'm ready to go. I accept Bitcoin now. they let us know, and then we can then disseminate that relatively quickly. And someone somewhere is going to go out there and buy a coffee from them, and maybe bring out some stickers or whatever, and kind of have a pipeline for that, which is still, again, we're at the front end of that at the moment. But I want to see a process where that's really smooth and easy. You know, someone signs up, they get a pack. Maybe this is a community initiative to actually, you know, fund some of that stuff so that it can stay basically free for the merchant, and at this stage anyway, so that it's not any barrier to entry for them. But what we get is places where we can spend Bitcoin, and I believe there is a network effect where the more, you know, you only need one location, and then they start talking to their friends and their, you know, other business owners, and then we start getting some real, you know, real good impact going on there.
I think the reason why it's not sort of like an easy answer is because there's a bit of a trade-off, and we were just talking about this earlier about the custodial trade-off and the sort of the non-custodial trade-off. And yeah, the easiest way to get a merchant going is using some of that wallet of Satoshi. And the fact that it is custodial probably shouldn't stop us from introducing them to that as an option, because it is the easiest way of getting going. And I think going from 0 to 1 is quite important when you're helping the merchant out, and kind of keeping it easy and straightforward. But I guess explaining the trade-off that's being made, and then this, because I see it as a bit of a journey, because they'd be, you know, you'd say, you know, this is wallet Satoshi, and you don't keep, you know, once you've got a certain amount of funds on here, you need to send them to your cold storage kind of thing. And then, yeah, it'd be much better to go with, you know, something that's non-custodial from the get-go. But I do like Breeze wallet, but things like Breeze, there's little barriers to entry, little slowdowns and little niggles when you try and use it. And so for somebody who's just trying to get into it, if they start to see those kind of things, it can be off-putting, especially as you've got, like you say, you've got all the other things around the accounting and the tax and stuff. So yeah, I think, I'm not sure I was going this, but keeping it sort of, yes, keep it sort of easy, and you can do this. And yeah, like you're saying.
I think some of the barriers there for the merchants is really they want to have it integrated with their system that they currently use, and I see that as a big issue, because those systems that are out there, you know, we might need to do some research on what's been used, but I can imagine in New Zealand there's probably, you know, half a dozen major POS systems that probably covers 80% of the market. You know, getting them to integrate, you know, with Bitcoin, with Lightning, that sort of thing. I see that as you know, that would be a big win, but I see them being quite protectionate with their systems and modifying them. They want to have full control of what goes on. So, you know, the wallet of Satoshi idea and using Breeze, you know, kind of works for that. I would say that sort of that, you know, the person actually owns the business. They've got the full say, you know, and they can control the wallet. They might be a sole owner, that sort of thing. But when you step out and think about like a cafe with staff and, you know, 3 or 4 servers, someone like I went to this morning, C1, CAF in Christchurch, you know, they're going to have half a dozen staff on using one wallet. It's broken, you know, they just can't work that way. It kind of really has to integrate with their current POS systems.
It seems to me like probably what needs to happen would be something like this group needs to find a zero expert and scope what it looks like to take Bitcoin and reconcile your Zero or your Henry account or your MYOB on the back end. So if you're the business owner, who is the person who at the end of the month has to do GST and does the cash up at the end of the day and all that kind of stuff, like you can set, as you say, Matt, you've got a hump of process that you need to help people address at the point of sale. That's one thing, and that needs addressing. And then so does then so does the cash up at the end of the day, month, quarter, year as well. And so probably it means creating some guides for business owners who can go, cool, I'm happy to take Bitcoin because I know how it's going to work at the point of sale, because I've got this guide, and I just get everyone to follow that guide. And then at the end of the month, when I do my reconciliation and my GST, I've got another guide that tells me how to work this into Xero or MYOB or whatever as well. And that really is going to have to happen, because nobody is going to go, I'll take Bitcoin and then I'll work it out, because that's the kind of thing that you learn very quickly as a business owner, comes back to bite you pretty hard. So I'd say that that's what business owners are thinking when they have to think about, well, am I going to start taking Bitcoin? Maybe it's good because I'll tap a new group of customers who are interested in spending sats at a business like mine when they see it on a website that takes Bitcoin, and they'll prioritize me over another who doesn't. But if it becomes a massive pain in the ass at the end of the tax period,
it's the integrations and the work.
Drop it like a hot rock.
Yeah, the work involved to actually get that. Because I know, does Xero have anything at the moment? Does anyone know? Is there any?
Xero.
I've
looked on the message board. And somebody,
Xero.
Xero.
Yeah, somebody suggested accepting Bitcoin or using Bitcoin, and they're like, "Nah, it's just too hard. We're not going to do it."
I spoke to someone who works at Xero, and they were like, "Yeah, we're not going to do it." But I think they do have a third-party ecosystem that you can build for, right?
They do. They have an app store type thing.
Yeah.
How about do they have things in Xero for accepting like Australian dollars or US dollars and doing the conversion automatically? Because if they can reconcile it that way, it's no real difference to Bitcoin.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's actually really quite simple. And that attitude from Xero contacts doesn't bother me whatsoever. I mean, they're just driven by business. As transaction volume increases and merchants start to do it their own way, then the market will come calling and Xero will change their tune overnight. I think that the actual functionality to build that is probably pretty simple. I mean, I haven't worked at Xero, but worked in similar other organizations with financial systems, and it's not that hard to build something like that to have another button where you press Bitcoin, they're going to pay by Bitcoin. We know from our own experience that building that on Bitcoin is not hard in the Lightning Network, and just to transfer that across and treat it like a foreign currency, like you've just suggested, Rob, I honestly don't think it's that hard. I had an idea once of just writing user story-based requirements and trying to pitch it to Xero or someone like that, because that's where all the work is, and that wouldn't be that hard from back in my business analyst days. It would only take a few hours to whip up requirements to write that module to add on to Xero. And then, they'll have crack developers who can just smash that out pretty quickly. I honestly don't think it's that much effort at all, and it will just be an attitude thing. They don't see the demand yet. As soon as the demand comes, they could whip up a minimum viable product pretty easy, I reckon. Maybe I'm being optimistic, but just from what I know, I don't think that'll be a barrier for all that much longer. The market will come calling and they'll do it.
Yeah, we'd need a tax person to advise on this, but why wouldn't you just convert the Bitcoin to NZD at point of sale and then just treat it as NZD through the system?
That's right.
That's the easiest thing, right? I don't know if that's possible. I'm not an accountant or anything, but that would be the logical thing that I would be looking into.
Just sorry, on the accounting side, I was talking to an individual when we visited Stacker, and they suggested that they're an accountant who is also interested in crypto and that side of things. So I don't want to name names, but I will reach out to that person again, and I feel like that could be interesting to get some perspective on what the accounting side looks like, and maybe get some input on that. And Paul, what you said about the user stories, I think that's also really great. Even an Artifact, I feel like, we're a relatively small group and it's a small country, but having stuff like this floating around, even if it's the documentation side or the kind of the pre-work, I feel like it can often lead the path and lead the way towards where we need to go. Especially, focusing on Bitcoin, because there might be other stuff floating around that's not that. And so often, not the actual doing, but the pre-doing is just as important to set the direction for what needs to be done.
Yeah, it wouldn't be, gosh, I did fantasize about whipping it up once upon a time, but maybe if I found some hours that have a crack. But I don't think it would be all that hard. And then once you've got once you've got some functional requirements, you've got everything you need to build it, test it, deploy it, basically.
Well, Henry would be the other one, because I think they're based here in Wellington as well, and I pay people who use that, and I don't see it. It would literally just be like a BTC Pay type thing. Here's my bank account, or here's the wallet address, or the Lightning wallet, the Lightning address to send to. It'd be interesting to know what the attitudes are as well. I mean, as you say, the attitudes would flip as soon as there is demand for it. But who's making these decisions? Who are they talking to? Again, the decentralized nature of our group means it's sometimes hard to have those conversations.
Well, I agree with what Paul said. It's all about demand. Same, any merchant, any service provider, as soon as there's a critical mass of people saying, of zero customers saying we want to accept Bitcoin, or people going to a merchant saying, can you accept Bitcoin? That's it. And that'll come quickly one day. Oh, there's an accountant in the chat. It's just accounted for via BTC to fiat conversion. Yeah, very straightforward. Thank you, Dan.
All right. So I guess there's also the question, because I'm a bit guilty of this myself, wanting to do all the things, but focusing on what is actually the most high value and what's kind of the thing that's going to lead the way. Because when there is demand, someone somewhere is going to make it work. But always just trying to keep that in my mind. What is it that I can do that's most important and that's most relevant right now, given the whole situation? Halvening coming up in a year, where are we going to be at, and what's what's most important right now?
That's the right way to think about it. Between the Accept Bitcoin stuff that we're working on, trying to give people information, and I asked Rob if it was okay for us to talk about I'll talk at a high level about what we're working on. Rob and I are committed to jumping in on this merchant solution thing here. And so what we've been thinking about it ultimately is just like, what are the barriers to adoption of the Lightning Network here in New Zealand, right? We want to bring, what we see in other places here, make it possible to get people onto the Lightning Network. For everyday people, there's actually still some friction just to get Bitcoin on the Lightning Network, just to buy Bitcoin from something like Easy Crypto and get it on chain, and then figure out how to get it into a Lightning wallet and actually spend it somewhere where there's nowhere to spend it. There's a lot of opportunities there left in New Zealand to get it, so that people actually can, when they make the choice that actually want to, get into this Bitcoin thing, I'd say go into a coffee shop and see the sign. The journey from that curiosity to actually being able to use it in that way is pretty vast. On the merchant side, we've talked about it. There's volatility and tax and accounting, and those headaches are enormous. So, we've started working on this, and that first product. There's enough Bitcoiners out there with some Bitcoin on a Lightning wallet that we can go show up at people's places and start spending it. So, the merchant side is that first target. So getting that tool that eliminates those issues, the tax and accounting, and gets people instant payments without the headache of the volatility they're scared of is the key target. So hoping to get somewhere on that soon, and start heading forward. But it's early days.
Thank you, Brendan. I think the merchant stuff though is really important, and it's part of the circular economy stuff. And then also I think, just as a bit of our final sort of topic, I'd love to just talk a little bit about the meetups and the community as well at large. I know we've got the BitKiwi meetup coming up here in Wellington, and I must say, I think overall BitKiwi's, I've really enjoyed everyone that I've gone to. And it seems like that's where a lot of this has come from, is these real life events, which echoes what they were saying. And when I was talking to the UK guys, the meetups really helped activate a lot of people. Paul, what's I guess your vision for where things are at with BitKiwi? What can we look forward to on Saturday, and what's sort of the future and hold for that?
Yeah, so next Saturday, BitKiwi 5, Wellington, Falcon Brewer, 2 p.m. few of you guys are in different parts of the country. I'm not sure how many of this group will actually be able to make it this time, but yeah, really looking forward to that. We have ordered the next issue of Bitcoin Magazine to make available there, but it might be touch and go if it arrives in time. They've given us an estimated delivery date 2 days before, so we'll see about that. We've actually also booked a table at the restaurant that Cody mentioned before, so maybe there'll be a mass orange pilling going on there later in the evening, but we've made a 7:30 booking at, I think it's called Rajdhani on Courtney Place.
Rajdhani, yeah.
So anyone who comes to the meetup, more than welcome to come along to that. We did a dinner at the Khmer restaurant in Christchurch after the last one, and that was actually awesome. That was the first time we'd organised something like that, and it was fantastic. I think there was 10 or 12 people came there for dinner, and it was a cool atmosphere. It was great. It was awesome paying in Bitcoin. Sadly, we don't have a restaurant in Wellington to do that just yet, but maybe we'll get working on that on Saturday night. So yeah, that's the very next event coming. So that should be awesome. There's also I've seen today, she's retweeting it as well, was this I think she's the partner of Texas Slim, who runs the Beef Initiative, is in the country, and she seems really excited, is coming along to meet the Kiwi Bitcoiners, so that should be quite cool. I don't know if that means Texas Slim is going to be there or not, can't say for sure, but that'd be pretty awesome. There's a few people traveling from out of the city again, which is becoming a bit of a pattern now, so that's really cool that it's becoming a little bit of a destination event, which is sort of what we've been aiming for, so it's cool seeing that come to fruition. At this stage, we've got BitKiwi 6 planned for July 22nd in Wellington again, BitKiwi 7 October 28th in Wellington, and then we're planning one for Queenstown in February. So we're sort of going a bit long term on the planning, trying to lock it down so people can plan for it themselves. But we're looking at Feb 17th, Queenstown, and we want to try and make that a bit of a big one. So we'll get into some serious planning once BitKiwi 5 is over on the next sort of tranche. We're also penciled in BitKiwi 9 for April next year. So we've gone all the way out, a year out in our planning. We're sort of trying to get more consistent in the cadence of them. So we started off, BitKiwi 1 was, will anyone show up, and will this be more than one? Now we know that is definitely the case, and there seems to be a core group that's coming along. We're locking in for the future, and after BitKiwi 5, we've been joking around calling it the halving, because we're going to go to a quarterly cadence and sit on that consistently. And so yeah, it'll be a little bit more scarce because we're just about to finish 3 in 3 months. But we're going to quarterly, which was sort of always the plan, but we just sort of went a bit bespoke on dates on what fit with what we were hearing around the place, locations and dates before. But now we'll settle into a bit of a rhythm so people can plan for it, see it as a bit of an event. We kind of, like I said, we're targeting that sort of destination thing. So there's lots of meetups. Well, there's quite a few meetups going on around the country now. I mean, even there's a small group of us meeting weekly in Wellington, sort of separately. I know there's you guys in Christchurch doing your thing, and Rob's doing stuff in Queenstown, and Brandon's sipping a lonely beer into Dunedin, sadly.
Yeah.
Looking for more Dunedin Bitcoiners. But I know there's things going on around the place, so it would be awesome if people keep doing that, and then hopefully we can just get everyone to congregate a little bit at BitKiwi, make it a bit of a destination where everyone gets together. And we're seeing it's like a sort of a high signal group. I feel like it's a high quality Bitcoiners group that gets together, and they're talking about real, like all you guys have been to, we're talking about real projects, real building, and a real place that people can meet face to face and make connections, and hopefully just grow that activity and get it going, get some exponential pace going on into it, which is sort of the trend in Bitcoin a little bit at the moment. Even going back to the Lightning Network discussion before, we got onto Lightning Network 1-2 years ago. I wasn't really sure if it was a feasible thing because I'm not that technical with that stuff. But now I've really come back to it full storm because I'm seeing these tools that you talked about before, Brandon, that are actually making it much more accessible. And I don't necessarily have to be as technical as I thought I did a year or two ago. So getting all that sort of stuff together and watching that growth happen at all levels in Bitcoin and every facet of it really is what we're anticipating. And so when we're planning those events a year out from now, we're optimistically hoping for quite a big turnout. For example, in Queenstown, who knows where we could be by then. could be dealing with a rise in Bitcoin value, which will bring all the shitcoiners and whatnot. So they could start turning into a mass educational exercises, but we'll see how we go. But yeah, we're certainly planning for growth and just pulling all the Bitcoiners together and pulling them out of the woodwork. Because I'm also this, like you talked about that podcaster and Nelson, we're seeing these sorts of people pop out all the time. I mean, I actually think there's a hidden group of Bitcoiners out there just like us that just need to be aware that we're out there and start to connect with us. So yeah, sorry, that was a bit of a mass ramble, but it gives you an idea of where BitKiwi's going, and what we're planning and why. So yeah.
No, thank you, Paul. And I agree the sentiment. I think BitKiwi's very high signal, and maintaining that is really important. And then there can be these feeder events that are, like the Wellington Honey Badgers that catch up, pretty frequently, which can, I think, help bring people to the events when the time is right. And then it's good to have those two layers, because otherwise it's a lot of work for you guys, and I appreciate that you organise such a well organised event, and I know that there is a lot of effort that goes into that. So looking forward to Saturday and catching up there. And it does sort of bring up questions as we come into the halvening, community, making sure, that we're ready and we've got this base of people who are able to educate and help with the no doubt the influx of people who will come into the space maybe next year. So cool. Is there anything else anyone wants to share that they're working on? Any other projects just before we wrap up? No? We're all good. Well, look, guys, I think that was a really excellent catch-up. I thought I really did want to just bring us all together and debrief primarily on the Bitcoin Alive, but also just on the various threads that are taking place. It's certainly a epistemological challenge trying to understand how a decentralized group of people can just make sure we're synced up and talking and that sort of thing. But I think we're doing really well. And there's a lot of really good stuff happening, and I look forward to maybe catching up a bit more regularly with the builders here and others who couldn't be here tonight, and just sharing what we're working on and various projects.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Cody.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thanks, Cody.
No,
yeah, thanks, Cody.
Much appreciated.
Thanks for hosting, Cody. Thanks, everyone.
All right, sweet.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. All right, see ya.